Cassandra Harris, a powerful black woman and FBI director, faces an unjust traffic stop at the hands of a prejudiced officer. What starts as an abuse of power quickly backfires, leading to a series of confrontations that expose truth and demand justice. Witness her resilience, courage, and the ripple effects of standing against injustice. Don't miss this inspiring tale of strength and reform. Like, share, and subscribe to Warming Tales Free Us for more meaningful stories that make an impact.
A sleek black SUV glides down a quiet suburban road. Cassandra Harris, a 40-year-old black woman with a confident and sharp demeanor, has just finished a long day at the FBI office in Washington, D.C. She is the director of the FBI, one of the most powerful and respected positions in the American law enforcement system. But right now, all she wants to do is hurry home, enjoy dinner, and a favorite book. The headlights of the few cars on the road reflected in Cassandra's rearview mirror. Suddenly, a flashing red-blue light flashed behind her, pulling her back to reality. A police cruiser blared its siren, signaling her to stop. Cassandra frowned. She hadn't broken any traffic laws, she was within the speed limit, and there was no reason to be stopped. Despite her doubts, she pulled over to the side of the road, rolled down her window, and waited. A tall, white police officer in his 30s with a frowning face stepped forward. His badge read Mark Benson. He stopped at Cassandra's car door, leaned down with a rude manner, his eyes scanning Cassandra and her expensive car. "You were stopped for security reasons," Mark said coldly, without a greeting or introduction. Cassandra, still sitting upright, gave a small smile that didn't hide her annoyance. "Security? Is there a problem with me or my car?" "Show me your vehicle registration and license," Mark ordered, completely ignoring her question. Not wanting to make a big deal out of it, Cassandra gently opened the glove compartment, took out her car registration and driver's license, and handed them to Mark. He took them, checked them briefly, and then returned to his patrol car. As she waited, Cassandra thought about the situation. She was used to being treated with disrespect because of the color of her skin, even in a position as important as FBI director. But that didn't mean she was comfortable accepting injustice. Mark returned a few minutes later, giving her a cold look. "I need you to show me your ID," he demanded, his tone growing firmer. Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "My car registration and driver's license are fine. I have done nothing wrong to warrant ID. Can you tell me why you are asking for it?" Mark crossed his arms over his chest, smirking. "You have a suspicious attitude. No one like you would drive a car like this unless there was something fishy going on." Cassandra felt her heart beat faster, but she restrained herself from losing her composure. "Suspicious attitude? What are you basing that on?" Mark shrugged, his eyes flicking to the simple yet elegant jacket Cassandra wore. "Nothing special, but I'm the one in charge here. If you don't produce ID, I have the right to take you to the station." Cassandra gripped the steering wheel, trying to keep her voice calm but firm. "Sir, your request is illegal. I have provided all the necessary documents required by law. Unless you have a valid reason, I will not present any additional documents." Mark's eyes flashed with anger. "Don't tell me how to do my job, sister. People like you shouldn't challenge the authority of the police." The word human made Cassandra freeze. She had been faced with similar words for years, but each time she heard them, they still left a deep cut in her heart. Cassandra looked Mark straight in the eye. "I am not challenging your authority. I am simply asking you to exercise it properly. You are abusing it, and that could get you into trouble." Mark sneered. "Trouble? Who do you think you are to threaten me? You don't know the rules here." Not wanting the situation to escalate, Cassandra tried to maintain her composure. "I know the law very well, Officer Benson. And I also know that your actions are going too far." The officer took a step back, but instead of listening, he became even more aggressive. "If you don't cooperate, I can arrest you right here." Cassandra took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. This situation was not what she had wanted, but she knew better than anyone that calmness and reason were her strongest weapons at this moment. "You have no legal reason to arrest me, and you know it," Cassandra said firmly. "I suggest you reconsider your actions before things get too far." Mark looked at her, his expression a mixture of anger and defiance. For a man like him, being warned by a black woman was unacceptable. He gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with hostility, preparing to enter another spiral of abuse. Cassandra knew that things were just beginning. Mark Benson took a step back, but his eyes were still full of defiance. His fingers tightened on the gun belt at his waist, as if to show off his power. His breathing became heavy, clearly showing his impatience with Cassandra's determination. "You think you have the right to lecture me?" Mark sneered. "Look, I don't have all day to stand here and argue with you. If you don't show me your ID right now, I won't hesitate to use force." Cassandra remained seated in the car, her gaze calm but unyielding. "Officer Benson, I have made it clear that I have done nothing wrong and have provided all the paperwork required by law. If you persist in this behavior, you are putting yourself in a very dangerous position." Mark gritted his teeth. "Dangerous? Are you threatening me?" He leaned down, his face inches from Cassandra's. "Let me tell you, you're not the one giving the orders here. I'm the cop, and you're just a stopped driver. If you don't comply, I'll make sure you regret it." Cassandra raised an eyebrow, not moving. She knew this was more than a routine paperwork check. This was an abuse of power, a classic example of discrimination she had seen many times in her life. But this time, she was determined not to let it go unpunished. "You are abusing your power, Officer Benson," Cassandra said, her voice calm but authoritative. "And I warn you, if you do not stop now, you will be held accountable for your actions." Her words made Mark even angrier. He pounded on the roof of Cassandra's car. "Do you know who you're talking to? I'm a cop. I have the right to ask anyone for papers, and I don't need your advice." Cassandra felt both angry and bitter at the injustice and arrogance of the police officer, but she knew that reacting rashly would only make the situation worse. She decided to stand her ground. "Then I suggest you call your superiors here immediately," Cassandra said, her voice low but firm. "We will deal with this matter with the involvement of higher authority." Mark laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was a sarcastic, contemptuous laugh. "Call a superior? Who do you think you are? I don't need to call anyone. I'll handle this myself." Cassandra kept a sharp look on him. "You will regret that decision." Her words seemed to ignite an uncontrollable rage in Mark. He pulled a gun from his holster and pointed it at Cassandra. "Get out of the car right now. Put your hands on your head. You have no right to disobey me." Cassandra looked at the gun pointed at her, but she did not panic. She calmly stepped out of the car, phone in hand. She knew she was dealing with an abuser, and her calmness was her most powerful weapon. "Do you really want to do this, Officer Benson?" she asked, her voice calm but challenging. "Are you sure this action won't ruin your career?" Mark did not reply immediately. The gun in his hand was shaking slightly, but his eyes were still filled with anger and arrogance. Cassandra slowly reached out to open her phone and pressed the speed dial button. The other end of the line immediately picked up. "This is Cassandra Harris," she said, her voice clear. "I'm being pulled over by an abusive police officer. I need the sheriff's presence immediately." Mark frowned, confusion evident in his eyes. "Who are you calling? Do you think you can get away with this?" Cassandra didn't answer him. Instead, she continued talking to the person on the other end of the line, giving her current location. "Thanks. I'll be waiting." She ended the call and looked straight at Mark. "The sheriff is on his way," she said. "If I were you, I would think very carefully about my next move." Mark stood still for a few seconds, the gun in his hand still pointed at Cassandra. But this time, the confidence in his eyes was gone. Instead, There was a hint of hesitation, even worry. "What are you trying to play?" he asked, his voice less certain than before. Cassandra just smiled slightly. "This is not a game, Officer Benson. This is reality, and you will face the consequences of your actions." Mark gritted his teeth, but said nothing more. Meanwhile, Cassandra kept her face calm. She knew that the sheriff would be here soon, and everything would become clearer than ever. Very soon, the red and blue lights of the sheriff's car appeared in the distance, illuminating the quiet road like stage lights preparing for the final act. The sheriff's car stopped, and a middle-aged man with a dignified appearance stepped out. It was Sheriff David Morales, who had nearly 30 years of experience in the field. He walked quickly towards Cassandra's car and where Officer Mark Benson was standing. His face showed his annoyance when he saw that Mark's gun was still pointed at Cassandra, despite her not making any threatening moves. "Benson!" Morales called out, his voice echoing in the tense air. "Put that gun down right now! What the hell are you doing?" Mark turned around, his face pale as he recognized the person who had appeared. He immediately lowered his gun, but still stammered an excuse. "Sir, I was just doing my job. This woman refused to show ID and was uncooperative." Cassandra's eyes were sharp but authoritative. "Chief Morales, thank you for coming so quickly," she said. "I think we need to have a serious conversation about this officer's behavior." Morales looked at Cassandra, his eyes flashing with surprise as he recognized her. "You... Director Harris?" he asked, his voice low. Mark was stunned, turning to look at Cassandra. "What? Director Harris? You mean—" Cassandra nodded, not taking her eyes off Mark. "Yes, I am Cassandra Harris, director of the FBI. And this police officer abused his authority, insulted me, and even threatened me with a weapon without just cause." Mark was speechless. His face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead. I don't know," he stuttered, his eyes panicked. Morales gritted his teeth, his face hardening. "Benson, what did you just do? Do you know that your actions not only violate department policy, but could have serious legal consequences?" Mark tried to defend himself, his voice shaking. "Sir, I don't know who she is. I was just following procedure." "Check?" Cassandra raised an eyebrow. "I showed you all my vehicle documents, but you kept asking for ID without any valid reason. When I refused, you started insulting me with racial slurs and even pulled a gun on me. Is this what you call a checking process?" Mark bowed his head, unable to meet Cassandra's sharp gaze. Morales took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "Benson, I will investigate this whole thing. Now you go back to the station immediately and file a detailed report of what happened. I will talk to you later." Mark hesitated for a moment, but finally nodded, walked back to his patrol car, and drove away. Morales turned to Cassandra, his voice low and apologetic. "Director Harris, I sincerely apologize for this incident. This is unacceptable behavior from an officer of our department. I promise to investigate thoroughly and ensure justice is served." Cassandra nodded, but her eyes remained cold. "Thank you, Chief Morales. I hope you do your duty, not just for me, but for all those who have been wronged by officers like him." Morales nodded, his eyes showing shame. "Do you want to file a formal complaint?" "Absolutely," Cassandra said. "But first, I want to make sure that Officer Benson's behavior is fully documented. This is not just an individual issue, this is a system-wide issue." Morales bowed slightly, as if to show his agreement. "I understand. I will personally oversee this investigation and keep you informed of any developments." Cassandra took a deep breath, as if to calm herself. She knew that this confrontation was over, but a larger battle awaited her. As FBI director, she was responsible not only for protecting herself, but also for fighting to change a system that had long been plagued by discrimination and abuse of power. "Thank you, Morales," she said, her voice softer. "I hope your actions will be the first step in improving this system." Morales nodded again, his eyes filled with determination. "I will do everything I can to live up to your expectations, Director Harris." Cassandra looked at him for a long moment before nodding and returning to her car. She started the engine but didn't rush out. Instead, she sat for a moment, looking at the road ahead as if contemplating what had just happened and what needed to be done next. When she finally drove away, the car's taillights disappeared into the street. But Cassandra's determination was brighter than ever. In the days that followed, the small town's sheriff's office was in chaos. The story of Officer Mark Benson pulling a gun on FBI Director Cassandra Harris had gone viral. The news was picked up by major media outlets, creating a wave of public outrage. Internal investigation begins. Sheriff David Morales wasted no time in launching an internal investigation. The body camera on Mark Benson's patrol car was collected as evidence, along with recordings from his body-worn microphone. The videos clearly showed Benson's abuse of power and racist attitudes. In the recording, Benson's contemptuous tone is clearly heard. "Who do you think you are to not follow the rules? You should know that this is not your neighborhood, you..." The insulting words that follow are enough to make anyone who hears them feel indignant. The evidence not only pointed against Benson, but also fueled public outrage. Celebrities, human rights activists, and ordinary citizens all spoke out to demand justice. To calm public opinion, Chief Morales held a public press conference. During the press conference, he frankly admitted the police department's mistakes and pledged to handle the case transparently and fairly. "We deeply regret what happened to Chief Harris. Officer Mark Benson's behavior was unacceptable and does not represent the values of this department," Morales said in front of dozens of cameras. "We are committed to taking action to protect fairness and the community's trust." Cassandra was also present at the press conference. Calm but determined, she stepped up to the podium and said, "I am not here to ask for justice for myself. I am here to ask for a transparent system where no one is afraid of the people who are supposed to protect them. That is not just an individual responsibility, it is an institutional responsibility." Applause rang out throughout the auditorium as Cassandra finished her speech. After a week-long investigation, the police department's disciplinary board made its final decision. Mark Benson was fired. The decision was made public, along with a statement that Benson would no longer be eligible to work for any other law enforcement agency. Faced with the consequences, Benson lost his initial arrogance. In a brief interview with a local reporter, he admitted, "I made a mistake. I didn't think it would get this far. I apologize for letting my prejudice cloud my judgment." But Benson's belated apology could not salvage a ruined career. This event did not end with the firing of Mark Benson. It became a catalyst for larger reforms in the local police system. Chief Morales, under pressure from the public and Cassandra's strong appeal, passed a series of reform measures. 1. Anti-racism training. All police officers are required to take mandatory courses on diversity, equity, and inclusion. 2. Install cameras on all vehicles and staff. All interactions with citizens must be recorded to increase transparency. 3. Establish a hotline. Citizens can easily complain or report police abuses without fear of retaliation. Cassandra, as FBI director, also offered to work to expand this reform model nationwide. "We need to build a system where everyone is treated fairly, regardless of race or status," she said at a federal meeting after the event. Ultimately, Cassandra sees this not as a personal failure, but as an opportunity to highlight larger societal issues. "This is a reminder that we have a lot of work to do to create a more just society," she said in a nationally televised interview. "I hope that other people will see this story and feel encouraged to stand up against injustice." Cassandra's story has become a symbol of the fight against racism and abuse of power. She has been invited to many events and forums to share her story, inspiring millions of people. Looking back, Cassandra knows she did the right thing. She not only protected herself, but paved the way for a better future, where justice and trust can triumph over hatred and prejudice. And above all, she proved that no one is above the law, but no one is trampled by the law. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the whole story. If you like this content, don't forget to click like, share this story with friends and family, and especially subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next meaningful stories.